Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Line.
23-year-old Irina Zarutska was killed Friday night in a busy part of South End.
WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre has more on how her friends are remembering her tonight.
23-year-old Irina Zarutska moved here for peace, looking for a fresh start from her war-torn country of Ukraine. But unfortunately, she was met by tragedy. Family and friends of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska heartbroken.
I just had a heart of gold. She was a sweetheart. And it makes me sick to think that she's gone.
Zarutska fled Ukraine to escape the dangers of war.
Life was like it is right now, just bombing daily, depending on what province you're in. And you don't know if you're going to live to bring another day.
But Friday, in South Bend, she found herself in another battle. CMPD says Zarutska was stabbed to death.
All of this is part of the crime scene right now. It did occur on the actual train, yes.
Police charge 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown, who has a lengthy criminal history in connection to her death. It's not clear what led to her.
All right, so we have yet another Democrat-run city. We hear this all the time, that is run into the ground. This time it's a city that is in our own home state, in Charlotte. It's no surprise. We've been talking about this for a while. The Sheriff McFadden, who's there, wants open borders. He's one of the ones that won't cooperate with the Trump administration to get out criminals. But let's just talk about the mayor, the Democrat mayor. Her name is Vi Lyle. She's been the mayor since 2015. In 2024, just this year, or last year actually, homicide spiked to 111. Now that's the highest in years. While other U.S. cities that are pretty big saw murder rates drop, Charlotte's went up 40% in 1 year. And that's not safety. That is Democrat orchestrated collapse. We see it all the time. We're seeing it in D.C. Trump's taking control, appropriately so. Here's what's even more alarming. Juvenile crime, that is exploding. Charlotte police reports that kids really, they're committing armed robberies, murders, carjackings, 14 and 15-year-olds, and it's happening at epic rates with Glocks, knives, etc. Programs meant to divert them out of crime, they're not working. It's just insane. And so to kind of understand that and break down what soft on crime looks like and what it does and how it can be prevented, is Sheriff Sam Page from Rockingham County, who's running for Senate as well right now. Hello, Sheriff.
Hello, good evening.
So we see these soft on crime policies. I think it's up in front of the nation with DC, and what a difference it makes with tough on crime compared to the type of enforcement we see in Charlotte.
Right. I was doing some reading on this case, and apparently this offender had 14 previous cases, had served prison time, and again, from what I've read from the news reports, basically an unprovoked attack on this young lady.
Yeah. Apparently,
And
there's been.
the question you ask is, why is this person out? Why is this person out in the streets?
Right. And there's been a youth diversion policy and program in place that even the police chief, I don't know what his name was, but even he came out earlier this year and said, yeah, we're bringing these young people in, 14 and 15, who have committed almost murder. And I don't want to let them out, but I have to let them out.
Well,
It's an example of this kindness and this rehabilitation stuff gone amok.
Well, I understand giving second chances and trying to help people, but on your violent offenses, you have to understand. Just a few years ago, we raised the age in North Carolina. It used to be that you were considered an adult when you turned 16. That was raised to 18. So now what you're seeing is kind of flipping the system. Now you're seeing the violent youth offenders that are under 18 that would have originally been charged as an adult. Now, some of those cases, particularly a serious case like we're talking about, if a juvenile was involved in such like a murder case, something like that, it could be transferred. It could be transferred to adult court for trial. But I was always concerned when the raise to age situation came about is how would that affect our criminal justice system with the youthful offenders? And I think you're seeing it.
So what I've heard is that sometimes gang members or drug traffickers, they will specifically recruit youngsters to do their bidding because they understand that these youngsters will not pay a price criminally. Is that true?
I understand what you're saying. I was at the North Carolina Gang Conference a couple of weeks ago, and attended a session. I think our Attorney General was there, and some others from the State Bureau of Investigation and other investigators that deal with gang activity. And a lot of the activity that these juveniles are involved in, especially when you get into violent crime issues and gun crime, stuff like this, it's learned behavior from the older persons. The older persons get them into it. But you're right. When a lot of times when they're arrested, they're originally charged as a juvenile. Some of the cases, the more serious cases, can be transferred over to adult court. But a lot of times, these juveniles stay in the juvenile system.
Well, so getting back to this case, this guy had been charged also for committing violence against his own family members. And he apparently, they're saying he's mentally ill. But as you know, if you ignore mental illness, you cannot ignore mental illness. We just saw this shoot up of a Catholic school, this biased, bigoted hate crime yesterday.
Yes,
2 children who were praying in the pews in the Catholic school were gunned down. Now, the guy who did it was mentally ill, but mental illness is not and the mayor of Charlotte is saying the guy was mentally ill. That is no excuse.
No, it's not an excuse, but I've worked for more than 40 years with the mental health system and law enforcement, working with persons that do have mental illness issues and stuff. And, just a few years ago, we had what was called mental health reform in North Carolina. I think the concept was trying to look after and try to help people in their community instead of going to facilities. Dorothea Dix Hospital was closed down, and that's where a lot of persons were sent for inpatient care. Now we have Central Regional where persons are sent there, but the problem we're having right now with just the mental health issue is when a person does need to be sent off for the second evaluation, they don't have beds. So a lot of times persons that have mental illness issues, they go to the local hospitals. Some are released from the hospital after the first evaluation, and then some are scheduled to try to get them into the hospital for follow-up care, but the beds are not available. So a lot of times they stay in our emergency rooms for days, weeks, or longer. So the mental health system in North Carolina, I think we need to reform the reform, and we need to get back to some inpatient treatment because, like I said, persons that we're seeing doing some of these offenses that have mental health issues, they need to be in the hospital getting help. And a lot of times they end up back on the street or they end up in our jail system.
So that's interesting. So at the state level, there's probably something that can be done that would, get these people off the streets. My understanding is this guy was part-time homeless or whatever. And again, it doesn't really matter. We keep seeing this. I mean, I lived in New York, partly under Giuliani, but under Bloomberg. And I'm telling you, I didn't have these problems. I could walk the streets at night and I felt very comfortable. And then I moved to Boston and it was a totally different ballgame because there was different leadership there. And I couldn't, but mainly it was these, I hate to say, but people that were very disturbed that you didn't know if they're going to go violent or not.
Yeah. Sloan, you've been to D.C. before, hadn't you? Prior to President Trump.
I have.
And
Well,
I used to go up there about once a year, and when I'm walking around up there and stuff like that, I observe also a lot of homeless situation, a lot of drug usage situation, and again, you never know when you might have trouble with someone. A little over a year ago, myself and another sheriff were up in D.C. and we noticed the law enforcement officers near the Capitol, and they had crime scene tape out. So, obviously we went up to kind of inquire as sheriffs, kind of what's going on. And they told us, well, look, right before you got here, they had a guy sitting on a bench with an AR-15 pistol that was with about a block from the Capitol sitting there. And they ended up taking him down. They tased him and got him into custody and got the weapon away from him. But I always say, well, what was his intent? And I think he came from out of state and got to that location. But what was his intent? Well, we know he was there. We know that he had access to a firearm. And that's another issue in North Carolina is persons allowing access to firearms, or they may have someone in their home, something that does have mental issues. Right. Those weapons need to be secured so they can't access them.
Well, there's so many things that I was up in DC the time before last, and I had attended a Middle East conference on policy. And actually one of my colleagues who attended with me, he'll be on later in the show, Dan. But while I was there, a young man that I was in that seminar with was gunned down in front of part of the Israeli consulate. 2 Jews, I am Jewish myself, was gunned down in cold blood. And I have to tell you, it's very surreal when you are talking with somebody in the afternoon and they are gunned down that evening. And so I'm very aware of the lax situation. And this guy, legally had a gun there, but I'm telling you, in DC, they don't allow a damn bullet, sir. You're not allowed a bullet in your purse. Okay. That place is so gun free, that the criminals are the only ones that can even have a bullet, much less a magazine or a gun.
Right. Well, the old saying, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. I've been to DC quite a bit. I want to commend President Trump for his actions of taking control of our nation's capital. And again, it's a sad day. I've met several of the Capitol Police up there, but I take it back to leadership. What are the leaders up there telling their men and women to do that go out each day trying to protect and serve their community? And I don't know, but for years we made trips up there, and you always wonder, is there going to be a problem while you're up here? And here's the nation's capital. I would think that the nation's capital would probably be one of the safest locations in America. But I will say this, thanks to President Trump and his actions and getting some presence, law enforcement presence, and protection out there on the streets is making a difference.
Absolutely. Leadership comes from the top. Well, I want to thank you very much for having you, for coming on with me. Where can people donate to your campaign, sir?
Sam Page 4NC, Sam Page 4NC.
P-A-G-E. Okay.
Sam Page, Sam, P-A-G-E, 4NC. And we appreciate your help. We appreciate your support. And again, I look forward to working for you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, I mean, we're seeing the interesting thing is nationwide, we are seeing a difference between Democrat-controlled cities. We have a before and after, an A and a B, right? Where Trump came in and he just took control, and we're actually seeing that right now. Now we're seeing Charlotte in this situation, and I just wonder if there's something that can be done federally. Although I'm not in favor of federal control of anything as a conservative, none of us are. But sometimes you actually have to do that. So there's a lot of debate, even in conservative circles. Should Trump be in control of this or should it not? But yes, I do go to DC quite often. And it is, I have to tell you, a completely different place now that I've gone before and after. So we'll see how this works out in Charlotte. But there is a mayoral race coming up on November 4th of this year. So it's a municipal election. There is a Republican in the race. I encourage you to check that out. Because this, leadership comes from the top, and we do not have much leadership. Speaking of leadership, I've been very critical over the last 11 days about the Republicans actually writing and then passing the foreign doctor law. And we'll talk about that later on with Senate candidate Don Brown, as well as an expert in Islamic law to talk about how compatible that is. But first up, I'm going to play a clip from Tuesday night. Dr. O'Leary, I interviewed him. He is a well-renowned OBGYN who looked at this bill. It's not a bill, actually. It's a law, the law that's already passed. And I want you to get his take on how dangerous this law is from a medical perspective before we move into the cultural aspects of this great danger.
Since for 5 years, and they're fine with that. And one of the interesting things in there, when they were talking about ways they could establish competence, they had two things for the medical board. So one of them was they had the option of doing a comprehensive assessment. Now, what does that mean? We don't know, whatever they think it means. And the last part, because I think they feel like both people are going to give up and I keep reading this bill. The last part says, well, they don't actually have to pass anything and we can give them a license. And in a year, we expect them to pass a couple tests. Okay. But there's nowhere in the bill that says what happens if they don't take the test. Nothing. So when I look at a bill like this, you have to have everything in it. In healthcare, and you know this, if you don't put it in the chart, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. Well, the way I look at this bill, if they didn't write the specifics in there, it doesn't exist. Okay. And I don't want to listen to some Republican tell me, well, this is what we bet. I don't care. If that's what you meant, put it in there. Otherwise, don't talk about it.
I want everyone to know, after the law is written, Doctor, you have an opinion. I have an opinion. Somebody else does. The court interprets. So the next step in legislation, first you pass.
Okay, so the court is the next interpretation. Now, here's where we are today. My understanding, at first, when we brought this to your attention, it was about 2 weeks ago. And at first, lawmakers responded by saying that we were wrong, that our interpretation of the bill was incorrect, and that, yes, in fact, doctors could come here from foreign countries, but they had to pass rigorous standards. And now that's not holding up under scrutiny. My understanding is that when you guys, we the people, are calling our legislators, the answer they're getting is, we don't understand the bill. We meaning constituents, doctors who have read it, others who have read it. And so I guess as of tonight, that's the game that they're going to continue to play, is that we're too dumb to understand what they've passed. And so again, we have been waiting. I've been, 11 days now, and I've had no corrections whatsoever on my reporting. It has been the same. So the only Republican actually that has stood up against this has been Senate candidate Don Brown, who will be here any minute. But I want to put up the statement that he made today on X. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And he's acknowledging the cultural aspect that I think we've ignored. He's pointing out that doctors from Sharia countries, and I pointed this out, Iran, Pakistan, even Syria, Somalia, Yemen, they're on the list of doctors that can come here and get a license as soon as they come off the plane onto the tarmac. This is an insult to nurse practitioners, our American doctors, as well as physicians' assistants, because it drives the rates down. It's an assault, by the way, on our medical schools. Here we have some of the best medical schools in the world. And Don Brown has brought this up, and I got to tell you, thank you for coming on. I commend you for being the first Republican, high official Republican that has actually acknowledged this problem. Welcome to the show.
Sloan, thanks for having me. And it is a problem. And as I mentioned to you and others earlier, it tracks back to really not only an unfortunate decision by the North Carolina General Assembly, I think some done in the sort of in the dark of the night, maybe without reading it, but it really harkens the problem with legal immigration, where we're just not scrutinizing immigrants, and especially from Sharia countries. Even before you get to the issue of block migration, the issue of having 21 nations on this in this what I call the the Foreign Doctors Act that can just come into rural and even more than just rural North Carolina counties and just practice substandard medicine. And then the dangerous philosophy they bring is something that we really have to address. And I hope that it starts here in North Carolina. We recognize this and that it becomes a national movement, that we really are doing a better job of scrutinizing where we're letting people into the United States on a legal basis.
So here's how North Carolina is very unique with the passage of this bill. It's called H67. There are other states like Florida, Tennessee, who've experimented, Idaho, experimented with loosening some restrictions in the name of spreading access. And we are the only state actually that says the minute these folks, well, first of all, before they get here, Don, they're going to be vetted by agencies affiliated with the WHO. So North Carolina is relying all on international vetting first. That's the first gating system. The second gating system is getting a visa, right? And so they're going to, we're delegating our vetting to the WHO, which is problematic in and of itself. We are the only state that allows a license the minute they get off the plane, and here's why: because they can immediately start billing Medicaid and Medicare. So private insurance patients right away we won't be affected, but we will later on. So they get a regular license right away, right? They do not have any supervision whatsoever. So nurse practitioners, PAs, American born, American trained, they have supervision. These guys do not. And we're going to discuss the kind of roughshod that they can run over our population in a second. Now, despite what legislators are telling you, if you have a legislator that's telling you that a U.S. test is written in that law, at this point, 11 days in, they are lying to you. It's not that they are misinformed. They are electing to lie to you. And I don't like to say that willy-nilly. But at this point, you have, Don, recruiters, international recruiters, and I've showed them recruiting for international jobs. I found out from 3 different hospitals in rural North Carolina that people from third world countries are not going through a recruiter, but picking up the phone and calling hospitals right now, surgeons, because you don't have to be board certified. We're the only state. And so we provide, Don, a cannula for which chain migration can happen and penetrate the entire United States right here and take every American job. We have a problem.
It is a problem. And of course, I now live in Union County, which is the county just east of Charlotte and Waxhaw. But I grew up in Washington County, northeastern North Carolina, which is one of the smaller counties population-wise, about 10, 11,000 folks, and the poorest county in North Carolina. And Washington County had a hospital. A hospital is closed. It's now open for emergency room use. And East Carolina Medical School, or Vidant Medical School, there services the area, and we see helicopter flights coming in and coming out. So yeah, there is a need for to increase the quality of medical care in certain areas like that. However, as I've said before, in an interview that I had on One American News a couple of weeks ago, that you don't cure a headache with a cyanide pill. And this is an effort to get, cheap doctors. What I mean by cheap, I'm not just talking about the substandard medical training. And by the way, even if you had a U.S. test to take, you're still skipping the residency requirement. You're still skipping the training all throughout through medical school. It's going to be substandard. Even if you had a slap it on the slap the stamp on the paper and pass the test type of thing, which is a joke anyway. This is a discriminatory tactic against poorer counties, because what's going to happen? Blue Cross doesn't want to pay a doctor that's come out of Duke Medical School to go down to Plymouth, North Carolina, and bill their normal rates. If they can get doctors on the cheap from Sharia companies, and then the Medicaid is going to pay the bill, it's a win-win for Blue Cross, and it's a win-win for anybody that's more interested in the bottom line than they are about the standard of medical care in these poor counties. And they could care less about what kind of philosophy these people are bringing in. And I'm as concerned about the philosophy they're bringing in as I am about the substandard medical care. We've got, and in my press release that we put out today, we have 2 state-supported medical schools in North Carolina, UNC and East Carolina. We have We have 3 PA schools: UNC, ECU, North Carolina A&T, and 8, as I recount, nurse practitioner programs. Just expand the classes, and it'll be really easy to do. These folks could come in and they could take loans from the state, pay the loans back at low interest with provision they come to Washington County or Martin County, or I'm in Richmond County right now. Yeah.
But let me say this. So there are already, look, for those of you watching, you're not in North Carolina, I'll tell you a little about something about ECU. In the country, it is the #1 place to be trained for primary care, first of all, #1 place. It's credo, it's free to core. It may even be their tagline, is rural health. We train rural health doctors, right? That's their whole thing. Right. And so why do we, one of the guys, and I'm not going to get you to comment on another politician, certainly, but, one of the guys that wrote this is a professor at ECU. It just it boggles the mind. But what you've just done, Don, is you've just removed the incentive for hospitals to pay back loan forgiveness. So what would happen typically, let's say an American trained doctor would, agree to practice in Washington County for 5 years in exchange to have his $350,000 debt wiped out. Well, guess what? If you can bring in an MD from Bangladesh or wherever, okay, that is willing to work for, by the way, half of what this doctor is willing to work for. In addition, you don't have to pay that signing bonus and that loan forgiveness. What we've just done is taken away all incentive for nurse practitioners trained in North Carolina, PAs, and physicians. They will all leave.
Sure. Of course. It's part of this globalist philosophy to get the cheapest, the cheapest labor that you can get. And what we're talking about here, to me, is more labor than it is professional services, because we really have zero idea about these so-called Sharia doctors. And I know it's not just Sharia, but we have no idea about what their record's been, what their practice skills are. You're going to bring a heart surgeon in from Yemen. You're going to do that. You're going to bring, a brain specialist in, or an oncologist in from Ethiopia. What do we know about their practices? Even if you can get them past, some sort of perfunctory exam, it is a slap in the face to the America First movement. It is nothing but more sucking up to globalism, and it is a dangerous, dangerous practice. And it needs to be stopped. I'm hoping the General Assembly will come to its senses and stop this thing dead in its tracks and look for other options. Yeah, if you're going to have to pay an American doctor more, at least you get what you pay for. And this is very, very dangerous, and I believe a discriminatory slap in the face to poorer counties. Poorer counties have larger Black populations. This is discriminatory practice, and it is just disgusting. And I hope that we are able to, by calling attention to it, we can put a stop to it. I'm going to propose legislation in the United States Senate, basically, that would prohibit the importation of doctors from Sharia countries, first off, and would require any doctor coming in through an H-1B, or for anything. I'd like to get rid of the H-1B, frankly, but if it's an H-1B or whatever it might be, that the qualifications are absolutely identical. If you got to prove they're identical or superior to American medical school students, and there are very few places in the world that you can do that anyway. I mean, you can find, I've known doctors trained in Israel who do great. There are certain doctors trained in Britain, but you got to be very careful and selective about where these so-called doctors are coming from. And I will propose legislation to protect American citizens in that regard. This can be done certainly under the government's power over immigration and naturalization, and we can't continue to bring people here from all parts of the world who don't think about the United States Constitution with the same reverence that we do, and can be the purveyors of very dangerous philosophy. So I'm going to take strong action on the floor of the Senate to try to shut this down if our General Assembly doesn't take care of it first.
Well, that's great. And another driver federally is this, and I didn't know this until I began looking at this particular bill, is that Medicaid and Medicare, it doesn't matter if a doctor passed their USMLE, which is the gold standard test. If you're here from Boston to Bangladesh, you're going to do a residency and you're going to do the exam, right? But CMS will pay for that, number one. Number two, I found out that a board certification isn't needed. So you're already talking about a big gap that needs to be plugged by passing a bill at the federal level. I mean, it's certainly administrative. I think CMS could do that, or RFK could do that. Would you consider writing such a bill to make sure that no other state can do this ever again?
Well, 1,000%, absolutely. This is an immigration issue. It isn't just, it isn't just a standard of medical care issue. It's an immigration issue. And we have a right to put any restrictions on our immigration that we want to put on, foreigners coming into this country. These folks do not have constitutional rights under the United States Constitution. President Trump entered a Sharia travel ban in 2017. They sued. 1 year and 4 months later, the Supreme Court reversed that. But it's an immigration issue. So I'm going to advocate. We made a mistake in 1965 with the Hart-Celler Act when we started to open up immigration to Sharia and Asia countries. We got to push back on that. We've got to bring an end to block migration, in my opinion. And in the medical field, if we're going to bring in an immigrant doctor, two things have to happen. Number one, that doctor has the burden of proof that his training is equal to or superior to American doctors. And number two, he's not coming from a Sharia country. And I think those are the criteria those are the only criteria we can live with.
And I agree. And you and I know a lot about foreign policy, but I'm bringing on Dan Burmawi, and he's president of the X Project, not X like X, but X Muslims. Hey, Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Son. Well,
so you read Don's press release. I mean, all of us are like-minded on the Sharia law thing, but I just wanted to bring you in and have the two of you talk about the cultural aspect of really chain migration and bringing doctors specifically into rural areas where it's predominantly Christians.
So it's great to be with you again. Hello, Don.
Danny.
So let me start by saying this. During the World War II, when the United States arrested more than 100,000 Japanese who were living in the United States, why did the U.S. do that? Is it because the U.S. was, practicing racism against Japanese, or because of national security matters? Of course, for national security. So it shouldn't be seen as bigotry or hate to want to protect the United States, the national security. Now, when we talk about chain migration, we talk about bringing more doctors from Islamic countries. People might think, okay, these are doctors, so what? They are educated, they are civilized. Well, you might think they are, but you never know. And here, I'm not talking about all Muslims. I'm talking about probably 1% of people who are coming from the Islamic countries. I just shared a video on my X. If you go to my X, you will find a video of a medicine doctor graduated from Al-Azhar University, which is the biggest Islamic university in the world. And he's a medicine doctor, okay? And he's like speaking in this podcast to his friend. And guess what he is talking about? He is telling his friend that his professor at school, at med school, made him pass an exam because he had memorized a surah from the Quran, not because that was a medicine exam. So, and he's
Danny, that university that you just mentioned, sticks out for me because it is on the list of approved universities that can come here and take advantage.
This is the biggest Islamic university in the world, and it is the same university that Al-Dawahiri, the counselor of Osama bin Laden, was graduated from, and it is responsible for probably hundreds and hundreds of terrorist organization leaders who have studied at Al-Azhar. So this doctor is saying that one of his professors made him pass an exam, a medicine exam, because he had memorized a surah from the Quran. And it was a medicine exam, according to his testimony. Now, we could say, go ahead.
Don, what are your thoughts on that? Because you know what Danny's talking about. You know the university.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. I agree with Danny. and maybe 1% of Sharia, indoctrinated folks who are going to run off the railroad. But the problem is the problem is vetting who is who. During the Afghan War, one of the biggest problems we had in the period between 2007 and 2011 was what we call green on blue violence. Whereas we would have, for example, ANA allies, Afghan National Army allies, who were working with our troops and would turn around and shoot them in the back. I wrote the book on Extortion 17. We had a helicopter shot down in Wardak province in Afghanistan in 2011 and read all of the previously classified report and testimony. Our Navy SEALs and Rangers were more afraid of being shot in the back by ANA or Afghan National Army than they were about the Taliban being in front of them. So the problem and the challenge is the vetting process. And you have extremely educated folks with PhDs and MDs who can be radicalized, and we don't know who is who. And
Al-Zawahiri is a PhD, right?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that is yes, and that underscores the point. Is a dangerous proposition. And so the vet, but when you pass a law that's just going to automatically bring in folks from some countries that are on the terror watch list and others that are from 21 Sharia dominated countries, and without any attempt to vet whatsoever, that is highly irresponsible. I just think it's a matter of the General Assembly not thinking through this. But we've got to we have to be a lot.
I can't hear you, Don. For some reason, I lost you.
Okay.
Can you hear now?
Yeah,
okay.
I do. So it's let's talk about the vetting process. It's like, do you know what kind of questions the USCIS ask for people who apply for immigration? They ask if they are members of terrorist organization, if you have ever participated in mass murder. It's all kind of ridiculous questions. Nobody's going to say yes to any of them, and that's it. So that's the actual process. It's like if someone who hates America, who has been brought up, indoctrinated to hate the West, to work towards establishing the rule of Allah, is coming to the U.S., do you think he's going to answer any of these questions, any of these ridiculous questions? Beside that, do you think that a white American male Christian would know how to ask few questions to someone to find out if they are indoctrinated or not? They don't know what to look for.
Well, it's the medical board. It's going to be the medical board. It's the medical board, which, by the way, I want both of you to know, allow sexual predators to keep their license, felons and drug addicts. That's who's going to be doing the vetting, Danny.
So
and the medical board's not qualified.
Whether it's a gang member or it's a doctor, a medicine doctor, it doesn't really matter. If someone was, grow up indoctrinated on hating the West, on working toward establishing the rule of Allah, it could be anyone. He could be a professor at Harvard or a fighter with Hamas. So the problem is, and I talked about this before, the problem is not the fear of morality police, on the streets of Manhattan. That's ridiculous. It's more dangerous than that. Sharia is not only about beheading and stoning. It's about how policies are going to be managed. What kind of society do you want? They are going to shape the society according or in the image of how they see the world. And that is not the way of life you have you have known. So the danger is real. You need ideological vetting. That's what I call it. And it must be conducted by people who know what to look for. And again, this is not indiscrimination against Muslims or against a certain group of people. The war today is very dangerous. Look at Europe, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the UK. I just found out that the IOC, the Islamic organization that has been trying to push for blasphemy laws for a very long time in the United States and couldn't pass any laws, doing something called libel tourism. So if you're an American author who writes against Islam, for example,
Yeah.
and they cannot sue you here in the U.S. soil, then they go to the UK and they sue you there because it's more friendly, more
So,
Sharia friendly
but
in the
Danny,
UK.
so you just raised an issue, and Don, I didn't realize this. What about, and I never thought of this, what about that being imposed here where you're going to have lawfare? That I know a little something about that. Lawfare perpetrated by actually people coming in.
Well, first off, let me back up on one point.
I can't hear Don. I'm not sure why.
Can you hear me, Sloan?
Yes.
Okay. Let me back up one point. The United States of America has every right to discriminate against non-citizens. Discrimination is prohibited under the United States Constitution for American citizens. And if we want to shut down immigration from Sharia countries, we can do it so fast it would make your head spin. The Democrats won't like it. But when the national security of the United States is at stake, and when there's a danger that certain infiltration is going to cause great harm, we can do it. And the Democrats can raise Cain all they want to, and I think we should do it. And you pointed out, Danny, it is very obvious that the ability to vet someone from these universities is a very, very difficult thing to do. And certainly the medical boards have zero expertise on it altogether. But yes, Sloan, they will attempt to use lawfare in the United States to accomplish their means. I for one, am of the opinion that Sharia is a philosophy that should not receive First Amendment protection as freedom of religion. And why do I say that? Because if you look at virtually every religion in the world, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, whatever it is, these are, we have our different beliefs, but the common denominator is peace, love, tranquility, prosperity. But not so with Sharia, because when you look at the law of Islam that is Sharia, with the Bukhari Hadith and the Sunnah and the Quran also, you're leading to violent results and forced subjugation. To me, that is a philosophy more so than it deserves religious protection. But the answer is yes, they will attempt to use lawfare. I spoke in Paris in 2017, the night that President Trump was inaugurated the first time. I spoke for Admiral Ace Lyons. I was there as his representative and made the argument that the Admiral was making that the Muslim Brotherhood should be declared a terror organization. And let me tell you something. Believe it or not, the audience in Paris that night, which included a lot of National Front folks. Marie Le Pen was in the audience. The chief of staff of the French Air Force. There were a lot of conservatives there. They were applauding at that line. But we will continue to fight this on a lawfare front. But we got to do a better job of educating exactly what it is that we're up against. Because as Danny pointed out, you think, well, the doctor's coming from Pakistan, probably a smart doctor or whatever. But folks just don't understand the philosophy that we're facing. And I think we have to be just blunt about it and just expose the brutality that could be awaiting us. And I'm not saying I have many, Muslim friends. Not everybody's going to be indoctrinated, but if one or two slip through, you've got what happened at 9/11. You got other places, and we just can't afford to take the risk.
So, Danny, with
for some reason I couldn't hear what Don said at all. So,
actually, Don just said, I know both of you, and talking to Don is like talking to you, Danny. He just said everything that you would approve of. Muslim Brotherhood should be banned, etc. But because you were Muslim and now you are a Christian, I want to get your brief, unique view on what it would mean. So this law, and he puts, extremists potentially into specifically evangelical communities. That's where they are going. What kind of culture?
Just so that people understand, because I was reading about the law, what can you explain to the audience, not only me, what is the problem with this law? Because the H-1 visa, usually people who comes on H-1 visa, they are allowed to work, but they have to get their degree approved or
Right.
The
So
H-1B
right there.
itself only allows the employment. It does not substitute for medical licensing. To practice medicine, doctor has to have a degree verified by the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates and then
Yes. So
pass
stop. Yeah.
USMLE.
No.
Okay, so what are they taking down? What's the
Yeah.
problem?
So, Danny, briefly, the problem with this law is this: every other country or every other state in the union will allow a doctor, let's say from India, all right, to come over, rightfully so. That doctor will have to complete a 3-year residency, even if they've been highly trained in another country, right? They will also have to take a U.S. credentialing test, and they will also be supervised for a period of time, right? And that's the traditional way. North Carolina says no residency whatsoever, no supervision at all, and no test is required. So you could literally, in other words, here's the thing you'll appreciate. You came to America because you wanted to be here, right? You opted in to live in the greatest country on the face of the earth. Doctors who are from Bangladesh to Pakistan to wherever, they opt in to practice medicine here, and they are willing to sacrifice going through retraining, taking a test, taking their boards, right? This will allow recruiters, which is already happening, to go, all right, to Pakistan or wherever and say, hey, you haven't, get this, Demi, you haven't practiced medicine in 5 years. You still have a license here.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
You've been, right. You've been, and so you want to come over here.
Let me tell you this. My wife is a psychotherapist, and she graduated from a foreign country, not from the US. And when we came here to the US, she had to go through a process to credentialing in order to get her license. The process was long, but I'll tell you what, if my wife wanted to manipulate the law, it could have done it easily, because according to what we have seen, they ask for really minimum proof of training, what kind of education. So that's why the same way the U.S. has been exploited for a very long time on many different levels could also be exploited on this level. But when it comes to medicine, when it comes to a doctor, this is not only on the ideological level, this is on the health level of people. It's like the outcome of bringing people who are not qualified, not on the same level of qualification like American trained doctors. But anyway, it's like I'm sorry, just one comment. The reason this is happening is because the divide in the US between the left and the right, and people on the left, some people, some factions on the left, they sympathize with immigrants. I'm not, I don't want to make an overgeneralization here, but the way they see the word America is the oppressor, is the imperialistic country, and the rest of the world are the weak, the underdogs. So that's why they're facilitating a lot of these things like immigration, open borders. They are demoralizing America they're demoralizing America for wanting to protect its border. It's like America is not sovereign enough to stop people from coming across the border. So it's all comes down to this ideological war that is taking place in America right now.
Well, Danny, I agree with a lot of what Danny's saying there, but I want to add this too. It isn't just left-wing, anti-American fools that take that position where they oppress the world, etc. We have Republicans who want to get in bed with cheap labor, you see, and protect big corporate profits. And that's what they're interested in. So you have a combination of what you just described, Danny, and then you have, corporate devils who would sell their soul to the devil and sell the United States down the tube for the bottom line. And part of this is being driven by that, I'm convinced, as well. So, we got to be realistic with both of those groups and make sure that we call them out.
Right. And Christians also need to understand that when you've got Christians being murdered in many of these countries that are allowing this, or that are allowed to come over here, Danny, to your point, you said something about approved medical schools. They have an animus towards definitely Jews. We know that. but towards Christians,
I want
what?
it's like I want to base the fear on realistic things. I don't want to exaggerate. I don't want to. I'm not a fear monger. I discuss and comment on real things. I'm not saying that you do. I'm just saying that I want people to see the real threat in any of these things that we discuss frequently here in your show.
Yes.
So I'm not worried. Again, I'm not worried about beheading on the street,
No.
morality police. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about any of that. However, actually, my book is coming out on October 7. You know that, and I'm talking about the process of
Hmm.
how Islamic population grow over time, and the risk in forming the enclaves to turn into militias. That's a possibility. Okay, so I'm not saying that I'm excluding that, but now when
Right.
it comes to such policies like related to immigration, the problem is how America is going to be shaped by these policies over time, because it's very slow. You don't see it happening, but more people coming in with a different worldview are going to determine who's going to rule this country in the future, are going to elect officials who are going to make policies, who are going to determine what the country is going to look like. So you want to make sure that people who come to America have the same worldview that built America, the same worldview that made America great, maintain its prosperity and its greatness. If you bring in more people who don't share that worldview, not only that, but their worldview is antithetical to yours, then what do you expect is going to happen? They are going to influence everything around them.
Hmm.
Again, this is like, it's not only a matter of difference in aesthetics and food and in music. I can live with that. You can live with Mediterranean food. I'm pretty sure of that.
I live
But
with it every day.
the
Yep.
problem is not only, it's like incompatibility. I'm sorry, incompatible cultures. They are not only, they don't differ on
But this
food
is
and
a
music.
dominant. You're saying this is a dominant culture, and the purpose is. I think Don, what you're recognizing too. When we're talking about Sharia, we're not talking about Muslims. We know plenty.
Right.
We're talking about Sharia as a antithetical to the U.S. Constitution, Don, and that's what Danny is saying. Is that it's the form of governance. It's not the culture, right, Don?
Yeah, it's like, who are they going to vote for? All these
Well,
voting blocks, who are they going to choose to represent them? So
we're
yeah,
seeing that, Don. We're
yeah.
seeing that because we've got it, infiltrated here in North Carolina with the Democrat Party. Go ahead, Don.
Sharia as a philosophy, let's be clear about this, is at war with the United States Constitution. And that philosophy cannot be compatible with the United States Constitution.
Okay.
And he's right. Danny's right. We got to bring people. When you're bringing people in, and the first question is, am I bringing somebody in who's going to make a commitment to and love this constitutional republic and love the Constitution? And people off the street that don't know what it means, number one, that's a problem. And then when you have philosophies that are an anathema to it, at war with it, you're just asking for trouble. We've seen what's happened in Detroit. When I was in France in 2017, I was a part of an American delegation there. As I mentioned, we were whisked off to the Cathedral Saint Denis, which is a large Catholic cathedral where Napoleon and Marie Antoinette are buried as the Westminster Abbey of France, and it has become a no-go zone because of the radical open border policies that the Europeans have had. And Danny's right to a degree. These are Democrats and leftists who want to destroy the country, and they want to destroy and to attack the constitutional basis and the Judeo-Christian heritage of this country. And I think that our determined legal immigration policy must be to support a constitutional philosophy and to support our Judeo-Christian heritage. And I will not apologize for that, because that's what works, and that is what's made this the greatest country in the history of the world. So I will make no apologies for that.
Well, I want to thank both of you. I want to thank both of you for coming on. First of all, Don, we need to find your campaign website because Don is in a dogfight here in North Carolina. You're running for U.S. Senate. And I have to tell you, you're the only one that's dealing with reality on this situation, and others, I'm going to just say right here, everyone's asked me who I am endorsing, et cetera. And it would be you, sir, in your race, because you are able to see the world as it is. So where can we find your campaign website?
The campaign website is Brown, my last name, Brown, for the word FORNC.com, brown4nc.com. Come on board the website. We need all the contributions we can get. We're fighting against a political machine. This race is we the people versus they the establishment. This is GOP Inc. in its finest, most powerful form, trying to beat us back. But we got a nation to save. And those three words, the most beautiful words of the Constitution, we the people, talk to the grassroots. It's folks like Danny who love this country. And Danny, I'll tell you, the first immigrant that comes for the right reason and does it the right way oftentimes make the best citizen. But those who come for nefarious reasons can be the most dangerous. But we got to save this nation. Please go to brown4nc.com. Chip in whatever you can chip in and share the website and share our message with others. We're going to take this race. It's going to have to be a grassroots effort, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a few minutes with you tonight.
Well, Don, you're a longtime author. Danny's going to be a first-time author. You've got the book coming out.
No, this is my third-time author, but it's okay.
Dang. Oh, I messed up. Sorry.
No, my book is the upcoming book is really important. Not because I'm the author, but because it deals with serious things. It's called Islam, Israel, and the West, Former Muslims Analysis. I talk about the nature of Islam, how to see Islam for what it really is, not only a religion, but a political ideology. And I talk about how Islam is going to really impact the West, not through the exaggeration that we hear all the time. No, the real tangible impact of allowing more Islam into the legislative process. So this is important, but we also need to consider the lobbyists in North Carolina. I'm pretty sure that many people are making money out of such laws. So,
I've exposed it, Danny. You know me. I've already exposed that.
So yeah, it's like you need to decide whether it's about money or about values. Because it wasn't money that built America. It was values that made America rich. So if you want to keep being prosperous and rich, then you need to make sure that you stand for the values that made this country great to begin with. And this is something allowing more and more threats to come into this country. So yeah, please, let's talk about my book later. Sloan, thank you for having me. Don, good luck. Whenever I see people who are running for an office or in office, I met with a lot of great men and women who represent the great people of America, who understand the reality of what's happening, and they want to protect America, not being naive, not trying to protect a tyrannical ideology that wants to take over the world. So I'm so glad, I'm so happy that you're one of them, and good luck. We'll be praying for you.
Thank you, Danny. God bless. Look forward to reading that book. Thanks for taking the time to write it. It's needed. And your perspective as a Christian who's converted from Islam puts you in a unique position that's going to give you a powerful platform. We are grateful for you and appreciate you.
Thank you.
For some reason, this is a weird interview because I can't hear Don. But anyway,
Don says you're the best, and and whatever you're saying in your book, and to buy your book,
awesome.
And we will. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.